Hi, I know this information about the coronavirus can become somewhat tiring and overwhelming at times, but I hope that you'll take some time just to listen to what I have to share with you today about how to stay positive during the COVID-19 crisis. Now, please make sure to listen to part 2 of this video because I'm going to reveal how you can get access to completely free stress-busting and immunity-boosting hypnosis so you can begin to feel safer and calmer again during these very challenging times ahead of us. And yes, I did just say that, free hypnosis, so keep listening. Anyway, nice to meet you. And if you don't know already, I'm Jamie Vasilian, the Hypnosis for ADHD specialist, helping you or your child with ADHD learn to manage and even master your symptoms by understanding your uniquely wired brain so you can begin to live the life that you were meant to live. So here we are in sunny England. No, seriously, England is actually sunny for a change and has been, ironically, pretty much since day 1 of the lockdown here. And to be honest, I've gotten to a point where I'm starting to settle in and make the most of it. I'm even starting to develop the beginnings of a suntan, and I hope you are too. But it wasn't always like that. In fact, to be honest, I began to become very anxious with the news of the coming lockdown, and I'm definitely not the only one. Like many of you, probably all of you, I began to think about loss. You know, thinking about how the lockdown will affect our lives, the things that we will lose access to, the disruption and change and uncertainty. I was constantly hearing about Corona on the news and social media, getting sucked into the fear machine. And then the panic and the anxiety began to kick in big time. You know, how will I cope? How will my friends and family cope? How will the world cope? But I got to a point where I decided, look, I can either crash and burn, give in and just fall apart in the face of adversity, or hopefully I can somehow stand tall and strong and turn this around. What was happening at that point in my mind was that I was opening up to the possibility of changing my mental state to something more resourceful. And of course, as a clinical hypnotherapist, I know that this is possible, even in the worst of circumstances. If any of you have heard my recovery story from ADHD and depression, you might remember the turning point, the crossroads for me, was when my best friend quoted Coach Anthony Robbins, who said, "Change happens when the fear of staying the same becomes greater than the fear of change." And that's exactly the same thing that happened this time. I got to a point where I realized if I keep going as I am, I will just get worse. So I made a conscious choice, a conscious decision, the same conscious choice I'm inviting you to make today, or at least begin moving in that direction. Anyway, before I share with you how I made that conscious choice, let's just take a moment to understand why we have this tendency as human beings to react with fear and anxiety to situations like this. So you should never feel ashamed about this because we're human, and it's to be expected because us humans have a need to feel in control, which is programmed into us by millions of years of evolution. You see, we have this ancient part of our brain here, the reptilian brain, which loves certainty and wants things to stay the same way. In fact, this part of our brain prefers certainty so much that it even resists positive change. Not that you're thinking COVID-19 could be a walk in the park. After all, it comes along to remind us the truth that we do not, never had, and never will be able to control everything. Well, that's not entirely true. If there's anything that we've got control of, that's our mind, the way we think, and the way we respond. And so, if we can manage to get ourselves out of the reptilian part of the brain here, responsible for the fight or flight or freeze, we can move back into the front of our brain here, which is what the neuroscientists call the left prefrontal cortex, or LPFC. Of course, that's a bit of a mouthful, so I prefer to call it the boss brain. I mean, when you're at the front of your brain, the boss brain, you feel like a boss. You feel back in control again, and you begin to think about the crisis you're faced with in a calmer, more positive and constructive way. But of course, this is easier said than done for most of us. So the question that needs to be answered is, how do we achieve this? Now, by no means what I'm about to share with you is the only way to do this, but it is one way. And to be clear, I control my mental state through a number of means, including the activation of my boss brain through solution-focused, logical thinking, as well as the use of tools like hypnosis, meditation, and mindfulness. But anyway, for what it's worth, here's what I did. I literally sat on my bed, I grabbed myself a sheet of paper, and I began to activate my boss brain by asking positively worded questions. And I literally wrote all of this down. Questions determine answers, right? You see, if you ask your brain questions like, how will I cope? Or what's the worst that can happen? Your fear-based reptilian brain will literally get overactivated and give you 1,000,001 reasons why you can't cope, or a ton of possible nightmare scenarios, and it will give you lots of evidence for it, making you feel more anxious. So what I did was stop asking these questions and start asking positive, constructive questions like, What good things are happening despite this crisis? How can I turn this around? What positivity can be extracted from this dire situation? And even, what is the positive side of being in lockdown? Now that last question might seem crazy, but it's true. Whenever we appear to lose something, if we look hard enough, we will notice that we also tend to gain something. In my case, it actually meant more time in the sun, in nature, meditating, relaxing, studying, reading. And because most planes have been cancelled and the roads are quieter, I realized it would also be easier to make more videos for you, my listeners. Anyway, as I asked these questions, I began to realize that despite being in lockdown, there were still a ton of positive things happening in my life that I'd not noticed. And this is important to realize, because what happens when you ask the negative question is that your brain begins to over-focus on the negatives. But when you ask a question assuming the positive, the brain begins to also focus and look for the positives. Now, don't get me wrong here. I'm not saying that this lockdown isn't difficult and that there isn't fear and suffering happening, that people are getting ill, losing their jobs. Yes, all that and more is happening. But like I say, I'm not promoting denial here, asking you to bury your head in the sand and imagine fluffy pink unicorns. I'm just bringing to your attention that even in the worst of times, there are always two sides to a story or two sides to a coin. There's always positive and negative in every event or experience. But sometimes when the going gets tough, we have to make a more conscious effort to find that positivity, to find that silver lining. So what we need to remember is that the brain is a focusing machine, and it mostly deletes information because it cannot handle everything all at once. We also have a perceptual bias hardwired into us by millions of years of evolution to prioritize our survival by paying more attention to the negatives. As I often tell my clients in hypnosis, where attention goes, energy flows. So consider that statement for a moment and just turn it around into a question and be honest. Where's your attention going? Is it going on the fear and anxiety and the hype about COVID-19? Whatever your answer might be, the trick is to extract your energy from it, have breaks from Corona, and get back in touch with yourself. Sometimes the question, what good things are happening, seems hard to answer when things are really tough or if you've gotten stuck in a pessimistic state of mind. So one way around this is to focus on gratitude, the small things. In fact, in the darkest times of my life, gratitude has been the one question that has always been able to lift my spirits. The question being, what do I have to be grateful for? And what this question does is it makes us stop thinking about all the non-essential stuff like, I don't know, being able to go clubbing, go out for a drink, go on holiday, or go shopping and have a spending spree. The gratitude question reveals to us the stuff that we take for granted, like the sunshine, clean water, plentiful food, or the health of our loved ones. Another question that can really help is to ask, how can I help? How can I serve? This question takes our focus off of ourselves and puts it onto other people. And because the depth of our human relationships is actually the #1 determining factor for our health and happiness. After all, we're very social creatures, right? So we actually end up feeling calmer, more empowered, and more constructive and courageous when we put our attention on others versus ourselves. And that was one of the questions that I asked myself during this process that I put myself through. So getting back to what I did, I asked those positive questions, which got me out of my primitive reptilian brain here and back into my positive boss brain here. And then I asked myself the question, what would it be like if I woke up and a miracle happened? And I basically imagined that I would wake up feeling calmer, more positive, focused, not on myself, but other people, looking to serve. And after answering those questions, I then closed my eyes, hypnotized myself, and I allowed the power of my subconscious mind, which is, by the way, 90 to 99% of the mind, to reprogram myself for this new possibility. And I woke up surprised. Not only did I wake up from the session and shifted from anxiety to calm serenity, but I also came out of hypnosis with new ideas. And you see, what happens is when you then act upon those ideas, you then begin to regain that sense of control. And the key to managing the stress of the unknown, to dealing with uncertainty, is what I would call resilience. Basically, we are in the middle of a storm, but you may have heard this phrase, the eye of the storm. And I don't know about you, but that's how I like to think about resilience. That it's the ability to find the eye of the storm, a still point at the center of your being, what I sometimes refer to as your rock. Now, there's many ways to find that center, and each of us has our own rock. But if you're not feeling centered, if you don't feel like you're at the eye of the storm, or if you feel that you're not tethered to your own personal rock, or even that you need to discover what your personal rock is, then I genuinely like to help you find a way. And I believe that where there's a will, there is a way. You just have to be open and receptive to what life is presenting you with, And I hope that what I've shared with you so far has been helpful and assist you in making positive progress. But let's not end there. I hope that you're curious to listen to part 2 of this video, where I'm going to share with you about all of the resources I'm going to make available through ADDvantage Hypnotherapy to help you weather this storm, to find that calm, peaceful eye of the storm, including how you can get access to free online hypnosis specifically designed to help you in these unusually challenging times. If you haven't already, please remember to show your support by liking this video, leave comments, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Anyway, you've been listening to me, Jamie Vasilian, the Hypnosis for ADHD Specialist, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video, in part 2. Bye for now.